Hi, my name's Dr. Claire Baker, and in this short film, we'll look at some of the findings from the brightspots programme in relation to care leavers' views on place and purpose. The brightspots programme is a partnership funded by the Hadley Trust between Core and Voice and the Rees Centre at the University of Oxford. And it's really about trying to understand how children in care and care leavers feel that they are doing and using that knowledge to influence the services that we deliver. Care leavers were instrumental in the development of the wellbeing indicators that you see here. And these indicators led to the creation of the Your Life Beyond Care survey. And today, in relation to place and purpose, we'll look at how are care leavers doing in relation to their home. Do they feel settled and safe where they live? And do they think where they live is right for them? Are they coping financially where they live? And do they feel positive about the future? Do they have goals and plans? We've published 2 reports in relation to how care leavers are doing, one from before the pandemic and one after the pandemic. And in those 2 reports, we've got the views of over 4,000 care leavers. We've continued to work with different local authorities, and we've now heard from over 7,000 care leavers from 47 local authorities. So it's really important we take the time to tune in to what young people have told us about their lives. So why is place and purpose so important? Well, we know that housing is, of course, more than just a physical space. Care leavers remind us that our home is somewhere you can feel safe and comfortable. It's a space to unwind and relax, somewhere we keep our possessions safe, and it's often where we spend lots of our time. In our research review that we did at the start of the programme to help inform the survey development, young people really emphasised the importance of feeling safe in their home and also in their neighbourhood, and the importance of good quality housing. And there's a lot of general evidence to back this up about how we feel about where we live really is associated with our overall well-being and mental and physical health. And research with young people has shown that housing is a key contributor to well-being during the transition from care. Young people who were living in suitable housing felt much more able to cope and have a positive sense of mental well-being as they left care. Researchers also found that engaging in fulfilling activities, being in education, training, volunteering, work that we enjoy, is also really important to our quality of life. Conversely, being unemployed can have a negative impact on our subjective well-being, diminishing our sense of purpose and reducing our social connections. Again, in our research review on care leavers' views, they emphasise that the goals and aspirations are really important. Employment, education provides a source of income, a source of stability, but also can help with an alternative identity. Care leavers taking part in educational work was sometimes prompted by their personal drive to succeed, helped by being motivated by others, having the right information and support, and having a whole range of opportunities available to them. And another big theme in relation to place and purpose was the financial worries that care leavers can often experience. And in relation to well-being, having a really low income and experience in economic deprivation is associated with low well-being. In the general population, being in arrears with your rent or your mortgage payments is the top housing factor associated with lower life satisfaction and higher anxiety. So we can see that the issue of place and purpose is really important. And here this young person telling us, I think I do quite well and everybody's quite proud of me. Just being really mature and sensible. I get a wage and I don't blow it. I'm saving up for a car and I'm learning to drive. And I'm better at cleaning and tidying. But I think probably the worst things is just having to make sure I do everything right. I'm very aware of it all the time, not wanting to make any mistakes. And I think that quote really ties together place and purpose really well. And there's quite a lot of anxiety and stress in what that young person is telling us about very little chance to make a mistake or for second chances. So in relation to how care leavers told us they were feeling in their home, we can see that about just over a third, so about 36% of care leavers don't always feel safe where they live. So about 8%, so just under 1 in 10, hardly ever or never feel safe in their home. In relation to feeling settled, only about half of young people always feel settled in their home. And in relation to their neighbourhoods, again, only about half of young people always feeling safe in their neighbourhood. So clearly there's work to be done in terms of improving how young people are feeling in these really key areas. And as this young person said, it's actually a rights issue. I've got a right to enjoy where I live and to feel safe. And feelings of safety in the home, when we analysed all those different responses, they didn't particularly differ by a young person's gender or ethnicity, but disabled care leavers were much more likely to feel unsafe. There was lots of comments in the reports and in the surveys from young people about feeling unsafe, sometimes because of neighbours, the behaviour of others, the quality of accommodation, having to manage living on your own, and issues relating to money were all common reasons given for not feeling safe. And there was a steep decline in well-being when young people left care. And you can see here, we saw earlier, about 64% of care leavers always feel safe where they live. But actually, that is a drop from children in care, where 84% always feel safe. And similarly, we can see a drop in feeling settled. So something happens as young people leave care to make them feel less safe and less settled. And it's really an area we need to focus on and look at what we can do to continue to support our young people. And really interestingly, the government collects only 3 key indicators on care leavers at a national level. Whether they feel safe is not part of that. The question is about whether the accommodation is suitable, but actually suitable according to who? So the government statistics tell us that about 85% of care leavers are in suitable accommodation, but that's based on professional assessments and what services say is suitable. When you actually ask care leavers, only around 2/3, 68%, feel that the home they live in is right for them. I think it's a really important question when we're looking at numbers, just really checking whose views are being listened to and heard. The care system clearly can get it right. So what we see in the Your Life Beyond Care findings is a lot of variation. So you can see here, on average, about 64%, as we said, of care leavers feel safe in their home. But actually the best performing authority, many more care leavers, 79% were feeling safe. So what's happening in that local authority that more care leavers feel safe? And the lowest performing authority, it's dropping to about 51%. So we really need to unpick and explore that. So we saw earlier that feeling you can cope with your the money that you have is really influential on our well-being. And double the proportion of care leavers are finding it difficult to cope financially compared with their peers in the general population. So over 16, 20 to 24-year-olds, just over 9% finding it very difficult or difficult to cope, and double the proportion of care leavers, about 20%. But actually more young men are struggling with than young women, and again, disabled young people much more likely to be struggling. So in terms of purpose and having goals and plans for the future, I think positively, most care leavers did have goals, about 87%. And those who were parents were more likely to feel like this. But again, just thinking about our care leavers with a disability or long-term health problem, they were less likely to feel that they had goals or plans. And also associated with not having goals was being unemployed, not in education, struggling to cope financially and feeling lonely. I have goals in my future, but I feel like I do not have the money or time to do anything about getting a different job or a career. And so we were able to look at the whole range of indicators that you saw in that earlier diagram and to try to understand what influenced high and low well-being. So about 30% of care leavers had low well-being, about a quarter had very high well-being. So in relation to care leavers with very high well-being, they were much more likely to feel safe and settled at home, less likely to feel stressed or lonely, much more likely to feel optimistic about the future. And to some extent, you can see on the other side of the diagram that the care leavers with low well-being had the opposite experience. They're struggling to cope, more likely to feel lonely, experiencing stress and feeling pessimistic about the future. So looking across all the different indicators, we were able to kind of narrow down the top 10 issues most strongly associated with high or low well-being. So you can see there, of the 10, place and purpose really coming out strongly. So we've got feeling settled or safe where you live, feeling you can cope financially, and having those positive feelings about the future, having goals and plans. So it's really important that we focus on these areas of place and purpose. So I'd encourage you to look at some of the films we have in relation to these themes. These are poems from young people who've taken part in the Voices writing competition. So you have the links to two different films, one really speaking to the theme of place and the other to the theme of purpose. So I do hope you get a chance to look at those. The Bright Spots programme has developed a practice bank. It's very much a programme that encourages and supports change in local authorities alongside young people. And the practice bank has started to collect many different examples of what local authorities have done as a result of listening and hearing how their care leavers are feeling. And here we've just highlighted a few of those areas. For example, the Isle of Wight really spent some time after they got their survey findings working with care leavers in terms of commissioning and looking at new supported living accommodation. So how could care leavers be involved in writing the questions for the application forms, in scoring the different bids, and in viewing the properties as they were developed? So really trying to involve young people at every step of the way. And in Oldham, young people were feeling fairly positive about where they lived. There was higher proportions of young people feeling safe. So we're trying to understand what was happening there. And Oldham have a very clear protocol with their housing colleagues, and they've committed to removing intentionally homeless, something that's actually talked about as a recommendation in the recent independent care review. And Wandsworth really wanted to focus on feeling safe and again, meeting regularly with care leavers and housing partners to demystify some of the things around accommodation. They've produced a guide to accommodation, and they've also made sure that they're seeing each other regularly. And Stockport have done a kind of deep dive to try to understand more about how their young people are doing, which has led to the piloting of the Ring Doorbell scheme, so helping care leavers feel safer in their homes. And I really loved this quote, which was, "A home is where you feel safe, it's homely, comfortable, it's decorated nice, and you feel part of the family. You listen to and you've got your own space." And as a way to support local authorities and services to work with their young people, a National Voice have developed a campaign pack. So this is a free resource, and it's got lots of different activities for professionals and children, young people to do together to try to understand from both points of view what makes a good home. So do have a look at that if you are able to do some work with your young people on these issues. And accompanying the film is a reflection sheet, and just to think about what you can do in your role, whatever role you occupy, in relation to supporting young people to feel safe where they live, to feel settled, and to help them feel they are coping financially. And of course, we can't do all of these things on our own. So what can we do with others? Perhaps that's in your team. And also, what must your local authority and partners do to help care leavers feel more safe, settled, and coping financially? So the different references we've used are here as part of the film. So thank you very much for spending the time listening to what care leavers feel is important in relation to place and purpose.